Good day. My name is Marie Muldowney. I'm the Managing Director at CSI. I'm pleased to welcome you to this webinar on aging in place. The webinar is part of a series to focus on the advice that can be given, can be provided to seniors by financial advisors, financial planners, and wealth managers. Today's webinar is being recorded. The financial ratings, reporting analysis, projections, and other observations constituting part of the information in the webinar are and must be construed solely as statements of opinion and not statements of fact or recommendations to sell, purchase, or hold any securities. We ask that no one record this webinar without CSI's and Moody's explicit written permission. Lastly, no one has permission to quote any of the comments made by the presenter or questions asked by the webinar audience. For optimal listening, all attendees are currently muted. If you would like to ask a question, please enter it in the question box at the lower right-hand corner of the webinar presentation screen. Note that there are no continuing education credits associated with this webinar. As stated, there'll be time for questions at the end of the presentation. And for this presentation, we've asked Neela to provide detailed slides. The webinar recording and the slides will be made available in the coming days on our website. So it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Neela White. Neela holds the FCSI, CIWM, and CIM designation, as well as a CPCA, EPC, and FMA. So she's well qualified as an advisor to talk about seniors issues. She's a portfolio manager at 3Max, a division of Raymond James. Her focus on aging is informed by her own family experiences, including the prolonged illness of her father and a catastrophic accident that left her mother in a wheelchair. Neela is also a contributing writer for Silver Links magazine, a publication dedicated to seniors issues. Neela received a BA in Psychology and Gerontology from the University of Western Ontario and McMaster University. So I'd like to turn the webinar now over to Neela. Please go ahead, Neela.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning to everyone and good afternoon. And thank you for joining us today for this very important conversation on preparedness. One thing I would like to start off saying as we go through the presentation is my background is a little bit different. As Marie mentioned, I do have a degree in gerontology, and my first career actually took place at a nursing home in long-term care setting. So I do have that experience coming from a long-term care setting, as well as I was a caregiver for 10 years of my life. So I'm coming at it from the end of, as an advisor, what we should be talking to our clients about, and as our caregiver, what the experience is actually like. So if no surprise, most Canadians want to age in place within their own homes and communities. Planning can help your clients achieve this goal. The earlier you help them prepare, the more equipped they will be to respond to the changes that may occur as they age. Changes in health, mobility, finances, and social connections take place starting the day that we are born. So it should come as no surprise to our clients that these changes continue, and nor should they be ignored. Guiding our clients now to make choices while not in a crisis situation, and that is key, will give them greater control over their independence, quality of life, and dignity. What conversations should we be having with our clients? What could this mean for out-of-pocket costs? Is there the necessary cash flow for your client and the necessary asset base? What are their options for home care? What is the process of applying for government-funded care? When should you start having conversations with your clients? And what should be the preparation time ahead of an incident of preparing for aging in place? The definition itself of aging in place is quite simple. It's the ability to live in one's home and community safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income level, or ability level. So in essence, it's quite a simple and elegant description of what we all take naturally for granted as part of aging where we are. However, I'm sure we all have heard stories with our clients, with our own personal friends, and our own family that this is not exactly as simple as we think it is. Recently, in a National Institute on Aging survey, they surveyed respondents, and 60% of them said that their opinion of actually moving to a long-term care facility has changed as a result of COVID. And unfortunately, I won't stress the COVID influence, but COVID has influenced perception of long-term care and the actual reality of long-term care. 91% of respondents said they would try to live safely and independently in home as long as possible. Something interesting that came out with the stats is that Montreal unfortunately had a death rate 4 times higher than Toronto. So part of this, part of what accounted for this is Quebec is known for a very high quality care in long-term care facilities, and it's 86% publicly funded, which leads to a higher amount of people going into long-term care as opposed to aging in place, whereas in Ontario, it's 16% publicly funded. So we have a lower number of people actually going right now into long-term care. So now that perception has changed of long-term care, and is this the option I actually want? It's changed. What does it mean for aging in place and the expense and the preparation that goes along with it now? By 2035, 25% of Canadians will be older than 65 years old, and that includes me, and life expectancies continue to rise. So I thought this was clever, to plan or not to plan. This should not be a question. Really, the idea of aging in place, it does require some tweaking, and the earlier we can start these conversations with our clients while the incident is not threatening, the easier it is. And one thing I'd like to point out is that as unfortunate as COVID has been, it has actually opened up the platform of having these difficult conversations with clients, because everybody right now is hyper vigilant and hyper aware, and the media itself has created a situation that has allowed us entry into these difficult topics. So living at home doesn't remove the need to plan. It doesn't just happen naturally the way we think. In 2018, StatsCan reported that 25% of households paid for home care services solely out of pocket. About 25% of Canadians aged 15 or older provided care to a family member or a friend with age-related problems or long-term health condition. So imagine a child in grade 10 can be providing care to a parent or to a grandparent or someone older than they are, to help them live independently and with dignity. So are any, questions to start thinking about when we look at these statistics and situations? Are any of your clients caregivers? Have you asked them about what the experience is? And further to that, if they are willing to talk to you about what their experience is, here's the opening right now that you can have that conversation with your client to say, based on your experience, what do you think you need to put in place? Let's talk about it. Of these caregivers, about 14% received financial support from family and friends, 8% received federal tax credits, and 6% received funds from government programs. We are definitely seeing intergenerational and multi-generation family living on the rise. In 2016, 2.2 million people in Canada lived in multi-generation homes. This is certainly a trend that's not going to diminish. And part of the reason why we're seeing this now, it's twofold. So for some people, it could be financial. It's easier to have one home where we're sharing expenses, where clients are, maybe helping out with their kids, paying the mortgage, or helping out taking care of their grandkids. Part of it also might be the whole idea of my plan B or plan C is to go to a nursing home, but I need help now. And this saves you, adult son or daughter, from coming to my house to shovel the snow, cut the lawn, change the light bulbs, whatever it is. In 2018, there were 7.8 million family caregivers. That's 20% of our population is caring for someone. So as a family caregiver, that doesn't necessarily mean aging parents or aging family, it also is children. Almost half of all caregivers care primarily for their parents or their in-laws, and just about 10% covers care for their spouse. 25% of baby boomers have parents who require financial assistance. So that's 1 in 4 of our clients may have parents that need help financially. 20% of Canada's working baby boomers have nothing safe for retirement. So imagine here's a situation now where long-term care may not be a viable option because you do not fit the criteria to actually get in. So you're on a waiting list, and now you have to have your needs taken care in your home environment. What happens if you have nothing saved to provide that care for you? This is becoming a very, very common theme with our clients, and it's the scenario of a healthy spouse caring for a dying spouse. And what ends up happening is it leads to very difficult emotional and financial decisions with an awful lot of guilt. The dreaded decision comes from an advisor's point of view is if you have to have the conversation with your client about, maybe a nursing home or a retirement home might be more financially prudent than client remaining at home. Very often, the nest egg is totally drained, leaving the survivor, which is typically the wife, with nothing for her care, thereby jeopardizing her ability to care for herself. Most people want to do the best for their family member, but unfortunately, it does come at a cost, and sometimes that means overextending yourself. In 2019, for Canadians, the average life expectancy for a male was 80 and for a female was 84. The wife may outlive her spouse by 12 and a half years, but her last 5 years will not be in good health, and that's where she's going to be requiring assistance. So, if at that point the nest egg has been drained, what happens to the survivor? In a 2013 study conducted by Sun Life Financial, results showed that 40% of Canadians faced some type of financial hardship after a serious health event. 20% of Canadians have neither health insurance nor money set aside to cover healthcare expenses. And something we all know when we're advising clients from articles we're reading, seminars we go to, is healthcare costs are on the rise. We need to put healthcare discussion as part of our financial review with a client every year. And as an aside, in one of the studies, I came across a European study, and it was revealed that marriage helps men live 1.7 years longer, but it knocks off 1.4 years off of the average wife's lifespan. That's pretty telling. So let's start with how to plan ahead. I would say the first step is encourage conversations with your clients to think about different aspects of what they might need help with in the future. So if you notice that your clients are having health related issues or limitations, but they're resilient to having that personal conversation with you, prompt the discussion in a different way. Prompt it with what you yourself are personally doing or the conversation that you yourself are having with your own parents or grandparents. So if you're a younger advisor just entering the industry, maybe it is easier to have the conversation with an older client about problems that mom or dad are having taking care of their home right now, or maybe with your grandparents. That way it's a gentle introduction as opposed to demanding what's wrong, tell me what's wrong, let me intervene, let me help. So they could be having problems with their own personal care, with household chores, with meal preparation, money management, and that's where we come in, definitely. And they could need help with powers of attorney and maybe not even realizing the importance of having a power of attorney for care in place and having a power of attorney for property in place. And this is something that we need to stress with our clients, that this isn't necessarily a document that's necessary for aging. This is a document that we should all have. That way, if something should happen and we are unable to speak, we're unable to communicate our wishes, there's a directive for somebody to follow to say, this is what should happen. This is what they want. The second step, advise clients to take a look at any issues that they're having and suggest that they actually talk to their doctor about the limitations that this may present as they age. And the one thing I would say is we all know that doctors are very busy and may not spend a great amount of time actually engaging in that type of discussion with you. You can do simple searches or go to libraries and get books on, whatever the illness or limitation you have, and just to see what the natural progression is. Two of the most common degenerative diseases are rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. They cause a lot of limitations with motor skill and ability, and the estimated cost to the Canadian economy is $33 billion a year. So very important, and this is a conversation that should be had when your clients say things to you like, I'm looking at downsizing, I'm looking at moving, or I want to move closer to my kids, or I want to move, up north so I can have a bigger piece of land and it's quieter and less busy than the city. So when your clients talk to you about situations like that, part of what you should be discussing with them is, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, so you're looking to move up north. Is it a safe environment for you as you age 10 years from now? Can you see this being still a safe environment for you? Age and affordability of the home. Like, is the house too old possibly to renovate effectively to remain there for the rest of your life? Is the house affordable to maintain if you needed to bring in extra care? The location and proximity to caregivers. Now, I put this in there just because it tends to be a lot of caregivers, if you're hiring through an agency, tend to use public transportation to come to your house. If you are not close to a commuter train area, buses, subways, it makes external care coming in a lot more difficult for you. Are you close to services, pharmacy, groceries, hospitals, close to transportation? And I think most importantly, sometimes is community contacts. Do you still have a network that you can engage in your community? Step 4, I would say encourage your clients to take a good look around their house to see what needs to be moved, modified, and donated ahead of the health crisis. Reducing clutter and reminding them that the kids really don't want this stuff, I think is helpful, especially in a time right now, just because we're all in our homes. We have limited access to what we're able to do. So now again is a perfect entry time to say, hey, you know what? I've been at home for almost a year and I've noticed things that I want to change at 51 because I'm thinking these are causing me difficulties now. Have that conversation with your client. It will actually encourage them to reciprocate in kind with what they're dealing with at home. Simple things like you can say that you're doing this or you're suggesting to your parents to do this. Don't use area rugs. Install grab bars in the bathroom. Very simple, very cost effective. Place light switches at the top and the bottom of the stairs. Stair railings and transfer poles. So a transfer pole is just a tall pole that you can use to grip to help yourself get out of a chair if you're having trouble with your knees. So I think having very conversations become less intimidating for a client, and they're more willing to talk about that aspect of your life as opposed to just their investments and how the market's doing and news on the market. According to Public Health Agency of Canada, over 1/3 of seniors who are hospitalized as a result of a fall end up in a nursing home, end up in long-term care. So think about things that can possibly happen that you can trip over, that you can slip on, that can be avoided right now, which would help you not end up in a hospital and there not end up into a nursing home. What are your clients' worries, apprehension, and ease or distress? This is a conversation that we should be having with our clients to get to where they envision themselves 10 years from now, 15 years, 20 years from now in a realistic way. So when you're talking to your clients, if they mention to you they're having trouble walking or that they might lose their driver's license, you can actually suggest to them, well, there's a great app called Uber, at a time when we can all get together and actually see each other, teach them how to use transportation services, maybe help them out by Googling where they live and do they have accessibility to commuter trains or buses or subways. Loneliness and isolation is a huge, huge factor of aging in place. One of the important things are, do your clients have a support group, friends, family? Do they know where their local senior center is? Loneliness has the same impact on mortality, on death, as smoking 15 cigarettes a day and poses more of a problem than obesity. So imagine that the isolation that people have experienced right now naturally as a result of COVID is amplified for seniors, for our senior clients, because of limitations they do have and the fact that they're higher risk. So reach out. Phone calls are great. It doesn't have to be social media. Picking up the phone and saying, hi, how are you doing today? Means a lot. Safety concerns. Are they afraid to answer their door? Do they feel vulnerable and at risk? Are they in a position where physical, emotional, or financial abuse could happen? So the idea of social isolation and abuse do go a bit hand in hand. It tends to be easier to abuse someone when they are isolated because there are no checks in balance to follow up to say, hey, wait a sec, is something happening here? And that's what their abusers tend to be reliant on. Housing concerns. Can they afford to make their home safe? And if they can't afford to make their home safe, have they considered what the alternatives of that is? There are many, many barriers and challenges to living in place safely. And a couple of them are just the whole fact that living in place and doing renovations and modifications, it can be very, very overwhelming and complicated to undertake. And we all know from personal experience when we ourselves have, something as simple as getting the house painted or doing a renovation, how displaced we feel. Imagine that in a scene with your senior client having to cope with this on their own. So what ends up happening is, as opposed to doing the modification necessary, which in some cases may be quite simple, what they end up doing is just going for the easy option, which is let's fill out an application for a long-term care facility and see if I can get in. I think Canadians need to be supported proactively to plan for their future housing needs. CMHC did a focus group, and what they revealed was that seniors can fear that modifying their homes will decrease its value, so they actually hold off. And part of this is that there's a stigma associated with an older person's house. So when people move, they tend not to look beyond what their current need is when planning. And it tends to be one of those things that it's hard to encourage somebody to look ahead and put these modifications in place, knowing that for many people that their home is their biggest asset, biggest financial asset. There's also a low level of awareness within our senior clients and our caregivers about what their housing options are, and what home modification should be done and where and how to start. The emergence of the under the table industry can lead to uncertified work, targeting of seniors, price gouging, scams, and fraudulent salespeople. So I'm sure we've all experienced this with either our senior clients telling us a story, or even with our own family that a worker came to the house and took a look at two senior people isolated, and suddenly what would have been the cost of X for a new roof becomes X. And I think those are the things we need to be vigilant. So when our clients are having conversations with us saying, they're charging this, if we know that, hey, that's not reasonable, we need to be saying that to our clients so they're not being taken advantage of. To use a cliche, we don't know what we don't know. And I hate to use cliches, but it really is true. A lot of seniors don't proactively plan for their future needs until their health declines, in which case, at that point, the whole idea of better late than never is late. Waiting for a health crisis or an emergency to happen to do the necessary modifications and renovations, it tends to be attempted in a rush. It's under a lot of emotional stress. It tends not to be done in a timely way, which actually leaves them in a hospital or rehab or some sort of facility longer, as opposed to being able to go home because everything has already been retrofitted for their current need. Home care costs in Ontario are on a rise. So we're hearing that literally every day, and it is quite a scary reality. In 2016 and 17, 760,000 people received home care services funded by the Ontario government at a cost of $2.7 billion. This was a 56% increase in funding and 30% increase in the number of clients to the previous 8 years. However, that didn't even cover the cost of the need. According to an estimate from Home Care Ontario, over 150,000 Ontario residents had to purchase care and services from private agencies. And remember, that care is after tax dollars. This was an additional 20 million hours of home care services a year in order to live at home, in order to age in place. 80% of all care given to seniors at home is provided by informal caregivers. So that's family, friends, and neighbors. This saves the Canadian government between 24 to $31 billion a year. So when we look at, and I'm going to focus on OHIP here, when we look at OHIP, this is reliant on tax base. The issue that we're seeing is that in 1971, there were 6.6 workers for every one senior to support. In 2035, it's projected that there will be 2 workers for every retiree. So if we know that the tax base is going to be diminishing and the need for government funded services is going to be increased, we can see that there's going to be quite a funding gap, which means one of two things. Either the government's going to provide increased care on their budget, or it's going to have to be out of pocket expenses, in which case that's an important gap that we need to fill as advisors, determining what the cash flow is from a client's account and what services they can incorporate in their lives. So there is a process to arrange home care and community services. So in Ontario, it's LHIN, which is the Local Health Integration Network, and they arrange all government funded services. LHIN is responsible for deciding who receives the care, the level of care they think you need, and for how long. So each province has its own version of LHIN, and you can just Google that on the website. So if your client actually comes to you and says, I'm finding it really difficult now to get out of bed and to make myself a meal, you can say, you know what? You can contact LHIN and see if they can provide some service first thing in the morning, and this is how you do it. You'd say, call your local LHIN, and at the end of the presentation, there's a resource for that. What will happen is you'll end up speaking to a case manager, and over the phone, you end up saying to them that these are the issues that you're having. And what they'll do is they'll send in a case manager into your home environment to assess your needs. So they're going to assess your environment for safety, and then they'll assess your need. If they determine that you qualify for care, they will do the arranging of the care service provider. They will say how many hours you're going to receive. But if you don't qualify for care, the onus is on you to provide for that gap, and you would have to contact a private care agency. There's also Ontario Health Services Appeal and Review Board, so you can appeal if you were denied service. If you had service, or if your client had service and the service has been reduced, you can also appeal that. So one thing, I'm just going to quickly stop myself and apologize. I go in between referring to us as advisors speaking to our clients and us as individuals of taking the first step and investigating and doing these sorts of things for our own selves so we can have authentic conversations with our clients. So in case I'm referring to clients or you, let's take it as a whole. This is what we should all be doing for our own best lives. So if the amount of publicly funded home care is not enough, the clients will have to go to private care. So do you know the cost involved? So if your client comes to you saying, I need to hire someone, do you know that it's going to cost between $28 to $35 an hour to hire a personal support worker, a PSW, through an agency? Did you know that they can basically cover every function of activities of daily living, and that the only thing a PSW, personal support worker, can't do is cut toenails because of the risk of bleeding? So here's a summary of pricing for personal support workers for personal care. And it really depends on how complex is your in-home care need. So if basically you just need a little bit of assistance with whatever you're doing day to day, you would just require personal support or home support. But if you have much more complex need and you need nursing care, that can go for $45 to $60 an hour. If you require physiotherapy because the government allotted 8 sessions has run out, to bring a physiotherapist into your house, it can cost anywhere between $90 and $150 a visit. If you need to bring in an occupational therapist, and there are good contacts and good resources for coming into your house to assess safety and make recommendations on where to put shower bars, grab bars, non-skid flooring. that would cost between $100 and $150 for them to come into your house. So you can see by this list that this is not exhaustive, that it is pricey, and that we do need to have these conversations with our clients so they're informed and not caught off guard if their plan is to age in place, but they've not told anyone. There are a couple different payment options, but it usually tends to be personal savings that covers the payment of home care. So we have financial support through tax credits and grants and allowances. We have private insurance, so that's also dependent on your client's plan coverage. You know, questions to think about as we're coming up to RSP season and then tax season. When last did you review and discuss your client's insurance coverage? At their current stage in life, is it covering the risk now and in the future? So as we progress through life, when we're younger, we have different insurance needs and different risk assessments. I think when we're middle-aged, it changes again. And then when we're older, it definitely changes again. Workplace benefits. Employee benefits may include extended health care, shorter long-term disability, but most of this tends to come from personal savings, and that's your non-registered accounts, your TFSAs, your RSPs, pension plans. And if you're fortunate enough that your clients did buy long-term care insurance through you, or critical care insurance, critical illness insurance, that is one of the few things that will help not to erode your estate if you need care, if the client needs care. So long-term care insurance certainly is not an inexpensive vehicle. These are quotes from Sun Life. For $1,000 a week with a 90-day elimination period, non-smoker rates, unlimited benefits, annual premiums with no additional riders. So this is straight. So when we look at the cost of care, these are conversations that we should be having with our clients when they're younger, just because I think to be able to say to a fellow that, you know, to get long-term care insurance right now would cost you about $1,500. This is the impact it could have if something happens to you relative to the cost of insurance. But the longer we wait to have these conversations with our clients, the more expensive the product becomes, obviously because the risk is increasing. And it becomes one of those conversations that is met possibly with dead air because of the cost. So this is an actual case study of a client who had an accident. She was a 5-time cancer survivor, and at 78, she broke her neck and survived, disabled now. She was 6 months in hospital and rehabilitation, at which point she was discharged back to her daughter's home. She lived in a granny suite, and she was assessed by all medical professionals as requiring minimally 8 to 12 hours a day of care. The team assured the daughter that once the individual was released back to her care, that she would receive satisfactory in-home care so that independent living could continue for her with minimal disruption to the daughter's family and to the daughter. Upon return to home, the individual was reassessed by Lynn and received 3 hours a week, an hour on a Monday, an hour on a Wednesday, and an hour on a Friday. The individual could not dress herself, toilet herself safely, bathe herself, make her own meals, put herself to bed, dial a phone number, use a TV remote control, or go up and down the stairs without two-person assistance. So here is the cost of in-home care. So remember when we go through this, that this is complex care. So the actual cost of aging in place, Lynn, was 3 hours a week. That was free. The private personal support worker, the PSW, was hired for 12 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that came at a cost of about $400 a day. The client's entertainment, pretty much sole entertainment, was TV. Physiotherapy cost $100 a week per session. The foot care was provided by me and the hair care was provided by me. So that wasn't a service I was doing as an advisor. For those of you who don't know, this was my mother. So this is real, very real to me. That came at a cost of just under $12,000 a month, or let's call it $147,000 a year to have somebody come into our house and have my mom taken care of. What I want to point out with this scenario of aging in place, that covered 12 hours of care a day. My turn came from 8 in the evening when the PSW left till 6:30 in the morning for 5 years. So living at home and relying on family or relying on anyone to take care of a client, it does come at a lot more cost than we can possibly see and assess. In the last 3 months of my mom's life, she was diagnosed with progressive onset dementia. We were fortunate enough at that point because things started to go very wrong with my mom's safety. We were able to get her into a memory suite at Sunrise Senior Living. So, as you can see, these are the costs, and it was really dependent on the level of care. So, pretty much, mom was at the highest end of the care need. um, so here's an example: daily continence products program. So that was daily changing of medipads and changing of a medipad overnight. So something as simple as having to go to the washroom in the night. Where does the care come from for your client? That came at a cost of about $9,700 a month. 100, so that would have been about $116,000 a year, and that was for 24-hour care. So when we look at the cost, it is quite astounding, and this would be one of the cases where I'd say, shockingly, a retirement home was actually more cost effective and a better alternative than my mom living at home. So something I would like to point out on the reality of all of this, and we're hearing a lot about the transfer of wealth and intergenerational transfer of wealth. Before my mom died, so she died about 18 months ago, before she died, she spent just about $500,000 in care to keep her clean, to keep her safe, to allow us to function within our lives. So when we look at our clients and we look at what their plans are, what we also have to take into account is the plan realistic? This was realistic because we had open discussions about what the care need was and what the financing available was. So very important to encourage your clients to have these conversations with their children or whoever they're thinking is going to be providing their care. Trends in home care. So what we are seeing is that national and provincial governments are committing more investment dollars to home care funding and placing less emphasis on building long-term care homes. So that is a great thing, but what it also necessitates is we do have to have a plan in place developed with our clients for them aging in place until their care becomes too complex, because in Ontario, the waiting list to get into a nursing home, if your care becomes quite complex, tends to be greater than a year, in which case you have to have that resource set aside for your client, that if they do need care, the funds are available. So the shift in healthcare funding is definitely putting a greater reliance on an individual's home as the delivery environment. But the government right now still isn't looking closely enough at incentives to help aging boomers, developers, or landlords focus on accessibility of housing as well as age proofing. And what I mean by that is, as opposed to a round door knob, a lever door knob, widening of doorways to accommodate wheelchairs or walkers and modified walkers, lowering of the light switches. So if you're in a wheelchair or with a walker, you can reach it easily. Adding grab bars in the bathroom. So these are all little things that you can start suggesting to your clients, and even in terms of reference to yourself. I find that I can't see the stairs properly when I'm going down at night, so I've put in night lights so I can see it. Client, do you have that problem? Oh, this is what I did to fix it. Very simple, gentle conversations. I think we as advisors need to start talking to clients about their needs and expectations now in order to heighten awareness, eliminate the stigma of aging, which is alive and rampant, especially as a result of COVID. We need to get rid of the stigma of needing help. We all need help at various stages in our life, and aging is just one aspect. We need to demystify home modifications. We need to be able to be a resource for options, living arrangements, care service providers, and care, and financial provisions that can cover this. I think we need to work on changing the tone of our conversations with our clients to make it a proactive project, not a reactive undertaking. And for sure, your clients and their families will thank you. So in the presentation, I've included some helpful links. What I'd like to point out, most of these are Ontario-centric since that's where I'm speaking from. But there are little things that we can do um, to start talking to our clients. And really, it just comes as, where does our own comfort level lie as an advisor? So if we are in denial about our own morbidity and mortality and frailty, I think it's really difficult to have a difficult conversation like this with our clients. But if we ourselves are very open to the idea of, hey, you know what? One day, if I think this is going to be my forever home, I might have to move my washer and dryer up from the basement so I don't have to go down the stairs with a laundry basket and risk slipping and falling and breaking my hip. You know, your client's telling you, can you send me $8,000? I'd like to do a bathroom renovation. At that point, hey, you know what? Would it be an idea to put in some grab bars as well while the contractor is there? Cupboards, how high and how deep. I'm not a very tall person, so I'm finding I'm on a stepping stool quite a bit. Let's say I fell. Is this something we can modify and drop? So all sorts of little things that we can certainly put in place. There is ineligible expenses as well. So I think as just a tie-in for the conversation of preparedness, I think we need to open up a bit more with our clients and focus our planning reviews possibly a little bit less about the stock market and more about why you need to invest and why you need to save and what could the crisis be. What conversation should you be having with your clients? I think it's really any conversation dealing with life. What could this mean for their out of pocket costs, and is there necessary cash flow? You can determine that by their account, and now we know what the costs are. So if you think, I think one day down the road my client might need a little bit of help making meals and getting dressed, you can say, hey, I was reading an article and it usually costs about $30 an hour. That would be about $100 a day for 3 hours. Let's see, that would be about 36,500. Let's see, and have that conversation so that you give your clients peace of mind that if the day comes that they come to you needing help, it's not a difficult conversation. What are options for home care? Really, we can just easily Google options for healthcare, options for senior living to familiarize with how to direct a conversation to your clients, what services are being offered. We've gone through the process to apply for government funded assistance. Now, when should you start having these conversations with your clients? I think there's natural times when the conversation is easier to have with your clients. So, your clients just have children. It's super important at that point to definitely have power of attorney, definitely have guardians appointed, definitely have a will. When your clients say their kids are moving to university and they're looking at making it their dream home or renovating, there's a time to say, is this the house you think you're going to stay in for the next 10, 15, 20 years? Oh, you know what? I was thinking about that the other day, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out all the throw rugs. I'm going to hardwood the floor. I'm going to do whatever. So I think there's certain catalysts in our lives where the conversation's opened up. Kids move out of house and suddenly your client is suffering from empty nest syndrome, though I think that's less and less now since kids are coming back. But, if they're looking at making that next move and downsizing, you know, i- suggest to them, is there a hospital close to you? Is there a pharmacy close to you? Is there transportation close to you in case, when you hit 80, 81, you lose your license? And what should the preparation time be for the plan? I think personally, and this is a very personal comment, it's personal to me, I don't think any age is too young to have that conversation. I've had it with my 16-year-old daughter as a result of what has happened to both my father and my mother. I think it's necessary to start that conversation with our clients, even if they're younger clients, because these are things they can talk to their parents about, because whether they know it or not, they are going to play some role in the care plan. I think in your 50s, it's definitely a time to be thinking about that just because certain things do happen more so at 50 than at 25. And I think, past 60, 65, let's be realistic. Um, aging is better now than it was, but it's better longer and then has a diminishing period of where care is quite intense. So I think it's our responsibility, as difficult as a conversation is, to actually have this conversation with our clients. So with that, I'd like to thank you and open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much, Neela. We have quite a few questions, so I'll just go down them. I'm going to associate a couple of questions. There was one question as to why did your mom not get more free government care, even with the doctor's recommendations? Was it because she had resources to pay for it herself?
No, so in Ontario, getting government resources, it's not means tested at all. The issue, or what, and I won't call it a mistake because I did what I needed to do as a daughter. What happened was they came into the house, and mom had an apartment downstairs, a granny suite that was renovated for her disability. They looked at that she was in a safe environment. She was living in the house with her daughter. She wasn't considered high risk, even though she was very, very limited with what she could do. So they looked at all this, and also I should also qualify that by saying that my mom also insisted she would be fine. My daughter is here to take care of me, and nowhere in that conversation was I ever asked, do you work for a living? So that's why there was much less provision given to my mom, because she was in an environment. If this accident had happened and my mom was living in an apartment or a house by herself, she would have been much higher priority, because then she would have been an isolated senior at risk. And that changes where you're placed in rank. And the other thing with Lynn is, here's the pot of resource. So I live in Mississauga. So let's say here's the 1,000 hours for this community. It's on a need basis. So if there are 1,000 people and there's only 1,000 hours, this is how it's being distributed. So as a result, yes, she got 3 hours a week, and it was up to her to fund the rest of the care. And the waiting times to get into a nursing home in Mississauga at the time, according to our Lynn care worker, was 2 to 5 years. Her life expectancy when she was diagnosed with rapid onset dementia was 3 to 12 months, and she lasted 3.
Wow, that's quite something. One of the questions here was the understanding of the TLC insurance screen. Did they see it correctly that the insurance would only have covered $52,000 per year, and the remaining costs would still need to be covered by the individual?
Sorry, I'm looking back to see the number 52,000. Can we have a bit more description on the screen that they're referring to, or the slide they're referring to?
I'll see if I can get that. I have a related question on LTC. The observation is that insurance companies seem to be dropping LTC, that's long-term care plans.
Yes.
And so long-term care is a policy that covers expenses related to long-term care.
Yes.
What do you see as other options for people if this kind of insurance is going away?
So that is very correct. Less and less insurers are offering it, just because there is going to be such a demand, and the resource will be definitely used, so it's not worth it. Sun Life has a very neat product. It's called Retirement Health Assist. It's less expensive than long-term care insurance. There's like a longer elimination period and stuff like that, but it does help cover the expense. One of the things I think I look at now would be, TFSAs are sort of the maybe a bit earmarked as an emergency saving plan. I think maybe as clients get older, maybe we start referring to that as maybe that is their healthcare plan. That's their healthcare account. If they don't need it, great. But if they do need it, here is an option where if you withdrew the money, OAS wouldn't be affected. This would help you at least, get through maybe 2 or 3 years of in-home care. And then if funds run out, okay, then it necessitates applying to a nursing home.
Okay. I have another question around tax credits and grants. You've provided a little bit of detail. Is there more information that you can provide? What should people be expecting in terms of grants and tax credits?
I think it's quite exhaustive. Certainly, they've come up this year with I think it's a healthcare grant that if you spend $10,000 to make a renovation, to make a home adaptation, you can get about $2,500 back. I think the limitation with the grants and stuff is really the amount of money needed to renovate a home properly and to provide the care is less than the grant's going to support. Like when you think in a nursing home, it takes about $70,000 to take care of one resident. You know, when you think of what it takes to live at home, let's say we did half of that of 36,000, let's say about 36,000, that would provide 3 hours of care for somebody a day to live in their own home and keep that burden off the government. So I think as far as allowances and tax credits, there are some out there. There's certainly not enough as far as what they cover.
Okay. And our home care, retirement, sort of nursing home expenses, are they tax deductible?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know the care that my mom received inside the retirement home because she required additional care. I know that was not tax deductible. It wasn't covered because they're actually in an institution.
Right. Right.
So sorry, I'm not certain at all.
Yeah, we can check that out and get the answer and send it out to people. Do you find that many advisors tend to focus less on cash flow required and for resources as clients age, example for lifestyle vacations, versus perhaps an increased need for funds for long-term care? Do we have our priorities in the right place, I guess?
I think it's been slow to change. I would definitely agree that the conversation in the past has always been on, what are you going to do with retirement? What's the trip you're going to take? What's the higher end car that you're going to have? It tends to focus on really active, healthy lifestyles post retirement, as opposed to we're hearing more and more. And granted, this, part of it's media on what you hear relative to what you don't. There's lots of seniors who are 80s the new 60,
Mm.
that sort of thing. But there is a definite, still more of a focus on healthy lifestyle, which is great. But I think the conversation, especially in light of COVID, I think it really emphasizes, hey, if public perception is changing on not wanting to go into a nursing home where most of the care is government funded, and it's moving the reliance on home care, in home care, which puts it on families, friends, and neighbors to provide the care, or a private agency, that's an out of pocket expense. In which case, I think it is necessary to go through the plan A, plan B, and plan C with a client. And I by all means, I'm not saying that it's an easy conversation at all. Nobody wants to talk about disease and death at all. However, I think being uncomfortable now having that conversation while the client and their family is not in a crisis situation, is better than having that morning call or that morning voicemail saying, my husband had a severe stroke. He's going to be released from the hospital in about a week. What do I do now? So I think it's yes, it is uncomfortable. I think we need to get used to discomfort and have these conversations, because I think part of the discomfort comes from, if we're uncomfortable with the conversation, there's probably a good chance we've not looked at any of these things for ourselves.
Hmm.
In which case, you lead by example. This is what I did because I'm worried. How about you?
Yeah. So it sounds like you can draw on your
Yes.
personal experience and things you've heard to encourage the client to actually think about it ahead of time and not wait until a crisis.
Mhm.
Do you recommend that clients buy critical insurance and long-term health insurance? And I don't know if there's a number on the term of the insurance. I think that's pretty hard.
I think it is definitely something that needs to be looked at, especially if we know that resources are going to be limited. I think it's a conversation that might be easier to be had when the client is younger than when they're older. I mean, can you imagine having a conversation with a 75-year-old female client saying your premium's going to be 20,000 a year? Um, because I can hear what would come back. Well, I'm just going to die in my sleep, so I won't need this. I think it's important to have stuff like this in place, whether it's long-term care insurance or critical illness or a retirement health assist or earmarking X funds. I think something needs to be done to put that pocket away. So not just on the trip around the world and gifting and what your children are going to inherit, because there might be a chance that you're going to go through that inheritance and that's not going to be earmarked for your child anymore. I mean, in my mom's example, I mean, they worked, both dad and mom worked all their life saving and investing, thinking this is
Mhm.
what they were going to give to their kids. And 30 seconds, that changed, right?
Right. You just never know how things are going to go. So
No, no,
you need to have that nest egg of funds to be able
I
to
think so.
handle it. Yeah.
I think so more and more. And I mean, I think, if you don't end up using it, there is the legacy for your children. There is the gift. There is whatever. But if you do need it, um, it certainly allows you freedom with decision making on how you want your care directed. When that choice is taken away from you because you lack the resources, you are really at the discretion of people who can help you or the system.
Hmm.
And I don't think any of us want that.
No, absolutely. There's um there's a few questions on elder abuse. It's a hard question. Is there something the advisor can do to help prevent elder abuse in general?
I that's an interesting one. That is, it's interesting and it's difficult because abuse is something that the person who's being abused doesn't want to discuss because there's fear of retaliation, fear of isolation. I think we need to have conversations with our elder clients to really get an idea on who their social circle is, who their number one and their number two is. And if they don't have those sorts of things in place, definitely keep more in touch with them through any means possible. I think we need to look for all of a sudden the conversation changes where the client may rush a phone call or may hang up suddenly or all of a sudden's withdrawing large amounts of money for stuff they can't really tell you what for. Um, it's a very, very hard situation to assess. I mean, even, physical abuse, maybe you can see signs. Emotional abuse is much harder to assess.
Mhm.
Um, I think sometimes though we do get a bit of a sense of, hey, something's not right. This is the way our calls have usually been, and suddenly something changes where you get this feeling of, hey, something seems off. In which case, I'd say, yeah, you need to identify that, document that, and investigate it a little more.
Okay. I'll maybe pull out one more question. Did you need to update your mother's POA or the will? What are some of the things you have to think about around that aspect?
So in our case, we were very fortunate. Both my parents were very realistic about life and death. When my dad died, my mom updated her will. She updated her powers of attorney. I think you need to, when your parents or your clients are updating it, I think it's always a good idea to even ask your client, just scan you a copy, send you a copy so the day somebody calls, you can easily identify, hey, my son or my daughter has been identified. Yep, I see it here. Everything's good, as opposed to you get a call from a total stranger saying, Dad had a heart attack. I'm his power of attorney.
Mhm.
It puts advisors, I think, in a very complicated position where you certainly don't want to say to anyone, no, I can't release the funds, but your duty is to protect your client from fraudulent behavior. So I think definitely, wills and power of attorney should be reviewed. If certain life circumstances have changed, it's always good to get it updated. It's always good to put a photocopy somewhere that's easily accessible. You know, don't make this a mystery where the document is. Like, you know, don't make the person you want to do the best job for you. Don't hide it hide it on them, right? I think we're funny about our documents. We want to be confidential, but the day we need help, we want everybody to have a copy of that in their hands. And
Yeah.
I'd have to say, I had a bag once my mom did have the accident and her health started to decline and stuff like that. Both my sister and I, we had like a walking bag. We had a photocopy of her OHIP card. We had photocopies of the power of attorney for care. The will was with the lawyer. I had a list of medications that she was on and prior surgeries. That way, if anything happened, I would grab this bag. It had everything I needed, and I would go with her to the hospital, and here it all is. Because I mean, we all know it doesn't have to be the illness of a parent. When we are under stress, and especially emotional stress, we do not think fully, clearly, and rationally. So let's do that thinking before the crisis. That way we can be the best help we can to the
Excellent.
hospital, to the doctors, our family, our client even.
Excellent advice. So we'll all face the decision to age in place or opt for a senior living somewhere for ourselves, for our parents, or especially for our clients. Thank you very much, Neela, for presenting this webinar on aging in place. Very interesting. The replay of this event and slides will be available on the website in the coming days. That's at csi.ca. And we will be providing the slides and the webinar presentation. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.